York, punk rocker Joey Ramone, lead singer of the Ramones, died of cancer at age 49.
Up shortly on Pearl, it's all the day's top stories in our news at 7:30, followed by the weather report.
There is something in you that sees what you're doing is wrong. That sees the pain you're causing and regrets it. You don't have to be my enemy. You want justice in the world, so do I, but we're not going to find it by attacking each other. That's where you're wrong.
Wednesday, Supergirl Season 3 at 10:40 on Pearl. Famous for its enchanting beauty and architectural landmarks, Edinburgh in Scotland is unarguably the best spot for a Harry Potter pilgrimage.
It was quite unrealistic at first. It's like being in a castle, and how amazing it is, like every little detail in the building.
Thursday, big screen splendors at 9:35 on Pearl.
成長路上充滿挑戰。Aptamil 白金版以領先科學研創白金組合，支持寶寶發展，領先一步為未來做好準備。
Season 3 at 10:40 on Pearl. Famous for its enchanting beauty and architectural landmarks, Edinburgh in Scotland is unarguably the best spot for a Harry Potter pilgrimage.
It was quite unrealistic at first. It's like being in a castle, and how amazing it is, like every little detail in the building.
Thursday, big screen splendors at 9:35 on Pearl.
成長路上充滿挑戰。Aptamil 白金版以領先科學研創白金組合，支持寶寶發展，領先一步為未來做好準備。Aptamil 白金版。
So you think popular travel websites show you every hotel? Well, they don't. Actually, you could be missing out. Different websites show you different hotels. Some websites may only show you these, while some apps show you those. But because Trivago compares hundreds of sites, Trivago shows you a better overview of available hotels. And that's one more way Trivago helps you find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
How many tricks would you say he's now got?
I'd say 100.
These tricks are real treats.
Hello?
I think the hotel should consider giving him a job.
All the tricks that we teach at Pet School can be taught to your pets at home.
Tonight, teach my pet to do that at 8 on Pearl.
Beijing's top official in town calls for national security legislation. Western leaders call the missile strikes against Syria a success. And North Korea's leader meets a senior Chinese diplomat in Pyongyang.
Good evening and welcome. One of Beijing's top officials in Hong Kong said today the SAR is the world's only place without national security legislation. Some local lawmakers believe the remarks aimed at paving the way for legislation to implement Article 23 of the Basic Law. Sharon Tang has more.
Today is the country's National Security Education Day, a day established after Beijing passed new security laws in 2015. A symposium commemorating the occasion was held in Hong Kong for the first time today. Speaking at the event, Wang Zhimin, director of the central government's liaison office in Hong Kong, said protecting national security equals to securing Hong Kong people's well-being. Wang said some Hong Kong independence advocates continuously challenge the country's sovereignty. He added that some of them have entered the classroom to poison the next generation, and some have even infiltrated the political structure in an attempt to undermine Hong Kong's constitutional system and the SAR's rule of law. Wang added that some even went to Taiwan to set up links with anti-China forces in a bid to split and subvert the country. He said their speeches have far exceeded the boundaries of academic and speech freedom. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Carrie Lam said she felt that Hong Kong people have a weak understanding on national security. She also admits there may not be enough promotion of the subject. The chief executive stressed that Hong Kong has the responsibility to safeguard national security. That includes areas such as internet, financial and environmental safety. Today's symposium saw some 200 attendants, including local and mainland officials and former Justice Secretary Elsie Leung.
I don't think that this is organized particularly to tighten or to put pressure on Hong Kong to do anything. Don't forget that this is an educational program.
An opposition lawmaker said it's obvious that authorities are paving way for national security legislation in accordance with Article 23 of the Basic Law.
The history of the Communist Party tells people that a lot of time they can put people in prison simply by their speech. So a lot of worry are coming from that.
Wu also added that Pan-Democrats will certainly oppose the legislation if it happens. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The leaders of the United States, Britain and France have called the missile strikes against Syria's chemical weapons program a success. This comes as Syria's ally, Russia, failed to garner enough support at the United Nations Security Council to draft a resolution condemning the attack by the Western powers. Jeff Tang reports.
Guided missiles fired from the American cruiser USS Monterey on late Friday lit up the skies over the Arabian Sea. A total of 105 missiles were fired by the US, British and French forces in combined air and sea operations aimed at crippling Syria's chemical weapons capabilities. That's after Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime was blamed for a suspected deadly toxic gas attack in the town of Douma last week that killed dozens of people. Hours after the missiles hit, smoke was still rising from the remains of 5 destroyed buildings of the Syrian Scientific Research Center in Basra, a city to the north of the capital, Damascus. A defiant Assad said the military operation, which injured 3 people, reflects the failure of Western powers to achieve their goals in Syria following the defeat of the foreign-backed militants. US President Donald Trump called it a perfectly executed strike on Twitter and added it was mission accomplished, echoing the words used by former President George W. Bush after the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. The US Department of Defense said nearly 1/5 of the Syrian Air Force was destroyed in the strike, and neither Syria nor its Russian and Iranian allies retaliated. But the Pentagon pointed out that the Assad regime still has enough facilities to make and use banned weapons against civilians if it chooses. Washington's claim that all the missiles found their targets was contradicted by Syrian reports that the country's air defenses had intercepted most of the missiles. Barely half a day later, an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council was convened at Russia's request to debate what Moscow called a military crime and an act of aggression. Syria's major ally called for a draft of the joint strikes over the phone with his British and French counterparts, Theresa May and Emmanuel Macron. All 3 agreed the operation was unlikely to topple Assad, or that the 7-year civil war that has killed at least 500,000 people in Syria would come to an end soon. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
And here are more reactions from those for and against the airstrikes on Syria. On the sidelines of the Summit of the Americas, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reiterated his support for the attack on Syria, but described it as unfortunate.
Unfortunate that it was required to take direct military action to degrade the use of chemical weapons by the murderous Assad regime. I don't think there's anything that is not unfortunate about the situation, while at the same time being necessary to respond to the use of chemical weapons, particularly against innocent civilians.
Due to his close ties with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro called the strikes a criminal act by U.S. imperialism. The leader of Britain's largest opposition party is demanding Prime Minister Theresa May justify Britain's legal basis for participating in the strikes before an investigation.
I've asked her in a letter I've just sent to her this morning to publish in full the legal basis and justification for it, and also why she hasn't heeded the words of Antonio Guterres, the General Secretary of the United Nations, who wanted the strikes to be stopped, who wanted the UN Charter to be observed and give time for the OPCW to do its inspection of the chemical weapons in Syria.
Meantime, Jordanian leftists see in Amman to condemn the airstrikes.
We are here in representation of the whole Jordanian people to make it very clear that we stand against this aggression and we stand with the Syrian people, army, president and government.
Protesters in Greece were equally disgusted as they burned the American flag. But at a refugee camp nearby, this Syrian resident lauded the U.S. for saving lives. He claims he fled Syria after Assad's regime murdered his entire family and hopes the bombings will prevent Assad from murdering his own people.
I hope do this, because the Assad is big criminal. It's like animal. Trump say that it's like animal. He's not half mind. These children, you may kill him in the chemical.
Reactions were mixed among those living in Middle East countries. This West Bank resident said it's Trump's way of destroying evidence to prove America and France orchestrated the gas attack. But an Israeli citizen supported the strikes.
No, I'm not afraid, and it's very, very important because we cannot allow having chemical warfare. It's crimes against humanity, and it's very good that the world is standing up and doing something about it.
Representing a pro-Assad Hezbollah group in Lebanon, this woman says residents here will use their last drop of blood to back Assad's cause.
Syrian state media reports say that eastern Ghouta region is now free of militants. This after the last rebel fighters left the town of Douma, just to the north of the country. The Syrian army said the rebel group that controlled the region reached an agreement with the government and its Russian military allies to leave the city. The deal was reached after an alleged chemical attack on April 7th that killed dozens of civilians. A team from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons arrived in the Syrian capital Saturday to investigate the alleged chemical attack.
The leader of North Korea met with a senior diplomat from China yesterday, along with a Chinese art troupe. Video captured Kim Jong-un greeting Song Tao with a handshake and a big smile. Song heads the Communist Party's International Affairs Department. Then the duo exchanged their views on developing their friendship as a way to strengthen bilateral relations. This meeting signals Kim's desire to have closer ties with China. Then the National Ballet of China performed Giselle. And even though Kim was not present, his wife watched on and applauded the performers.
An Air China flight traveling from Changsha to Beijing was forced to make an emergency landing after a flight attendant was held hostage by a passenger. The plane had to land at Zhengzhou's international airport after about an hour into the journey. This after a man with a fountain pen took a flight attendant hostage. Passengers said the pilot announced that the plane would be making an emergency landing, but none of the cabin crew members explained why.
Leaders attending the Summit of the Americas in Peru have vowed not to recognize the upcoming presidential election in Venezuela. They denounced Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro for running an unfair election because there is no full participation of the opposition. Maduro is seeking another 6-year term in the May 20th election. But Venezuela's Supreme Court has banned the country's main opposition parties from taking part in the election. This comes amid a severe political, economic, and humanitarian crisis. Although Venezuela was not at the agenda on the summit, the United States sought to have its allies take a tougher position to pressure Maduro.
Still ahead in tonight's news. Horse racing and sports betting, part of Hainan Island's new development plan. The entertainment industry calls for tighter controls over secondary ticketing platforms. And Winnie Mandela's funeral in South Africa.
20 aspiring home cooks.
It's always a symphony of flavors on the plate.
3 harsh judges.
It's a complete travesty.
And 1 highly sought-after trophy.
America's Next Master Chef is standing in front of us right now.
Monday, MasterChef, Season 8, at 8:30 on Pearl. Are Xi Jinping's economic reforms enough to avoid a US-China trade war? Tara Joseph on Straight Talk, Tuesday night at 8 on Pearl.
有機、純、天然，全新雅培 Alpha Organic 幼兒配方奶粉，全線符合歐盟有機標準、丹麥有機認證。雅培 Alpha Organic。
Same hotel, same price? Oh, no. There are so many different prices out there all over the internet. And Trivago instantly compares them all to find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
Hello, Mr. Allen.
DeVoe, he took Barry.
Where's my son? Has he gone missing? He's not missing. He was taken. I'm here for a reason.
Tuesday.
The lesson for today is there are no happy endings.
If you hurt him, if you put a hand on it!
His body may be human.
DeVoe!
His brain
DeVoe!
is smarter than yours.
DeVoe!
The Flash, Season 4, at 10:40 on Pearl.
Welcome back. The central government has unveiled more plans to develop Hainan province, this time saying it wants to allow horse racing and sports betting on the island. And that's making Macau a little nervous. Winna Wong has more on that.
When it comes to Hainan province, the central government is going all out in its efforts to transform the country's southernmost region into a bustling hub of work and leisure. Just one day after President Xi Jinping announced official plans to turn Hainan province into China's biggest free trade zone by 2020, more ambitions were unveiled. This time it's to allow horse racing and sports betting on the island. And while this may be exciting news for the region, it's making the people of Macau a little skittish. If the plans go through, it's likely the enclave will no longer remain the country's only gambling mecca. I do worry a new spot will take away from Macau, says this man. But this Macau resident welcomes the competition. It's great, says this mainland tourist in Macau. There's a need for more places like this. Macau lawmaker and university professor Davis Fong notes that in recent years, visitors to the enclave have shifted away from gambling activities for other things. He says the government can consider offering more nighttime shows to attract tourists and make Macau more attractive. According to Xinhua News, Beijing wants Hainan Island to take on a bigger role in pushing the country's reform and opening up. It wants to make Hainan a vivid example of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Wenna Wang, TVB News.
As the government plans to curb ticket touts, a performing industry representative has recommended stricter controls on the ticket resale market. Caleb Leung has more.
Local comedian Daniel Wong earlier brought the issue of ticket touting to center stage. Calling the problem outrageous, Wong called on the government to clamp down on ticket touts. Speaking to TVB News, Lisa Hui of the Performing Industry Association admits the problem has worsened over the years. She believes the existence of secondary ticket markets is a major factor that contributes to the problem.
Everybody has agreed. If they can resell the ticket easily through the platform without any responsibility, they can get easy money.
Hui believes it is necessary to tighten controls over secondary ticketing platforms on the internet.
We have to regulate all these platforms under Hong Kong law because without any restriction, they can.
From being resold at higher prices.
The market also have ticket scalping from the public sales. For the internal booking, we usually reserve the ticket for fans club, which is the real fans of our singers and performers. And secondly, we will get the support from the sponsor. So the sponsor will help us to promote the ticket or promote the overall concert. So this achieve our concert promotion objective and marketing.
She also expressed reservations over the idea of a real name registration system for ticket buyers.
Can we change the name for the ticket? How many times that we can change the name? If I sell you the ticket, okay, I can limit just one time. You can change the name, and you sell. And the second people that get the ticket, can they sell?
Hui also says if event organizers are required to confirm the identities of ticket holders, it may take 2 to 3 hours to admit all audience members into a venue. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Members of an animal concern group gathered outside the central government offices today. They demanded an update on animal protection laws. Police Commissioner Stephen Loh made it clear yesterday he will expand the force's animal protection squads from 13 to 22 districts. Members of the Alliance for Hong Kong Animal Police believe this is a groundbreaking act and will closely monitor the effectiveness of the expansion. Meanwhile, Democratic Party lawmaker Roy Kwong said current laws to prevent cruelty to animals are outdated and should be reviewed. Now to a suspected arson affecting 4 vehicles in Yuen Long. The incident happened at an open-air car park on Long Wo Road. The police received a report at around 4 a.m. about cars being engulfed in flames. Officers and firefighters believe the case is suspicious after an initial investigation. Police are now treating the case as arson. And South Africa's anti-apartheid heroine, Winnie Mandela, was laid to rest yesterday. Thousands of mourners gathered to see the burial of the ex-wife of Nelson Mandela. Winnie Mandela died on April 2nd at the age of 81 after a long illness. Her passing was met by an outpouring of emotion across the country. Many of her supporters say they will remember her as the mother of the nation in recognition of her struggle to end white minority rule. James, it's always a pleasure anchoring with you. What do you have for us in sports today?
Well, thank you very much. We begin today with F1 action. It was a thrilling afternoon of racing in Shanghai as Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo took the checkered flag at the Chinese Grand Prix. The Australian started from the Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored. Well, the NBA playoffs are underway, and wins for Golden State, Toronto, and New Orleans. In Philadelphia. Well, around 30 people took part in a running event to commemorate the 29th anniversary of the June 4th crackdown in Beijing. The runners started their 12-kilometer run this morning at Times Square in Causeway Bay, passing by Victoria Park, as well as the Pillar of Shame at the University of Hong Kong. The run ended at Beijing's liaison office in Western. Runners left after leaving white flowers outside the liaison office and shouting slogans such as an end to one-party rule.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Good night.
It looks like a dead zone here.
If we keep going the way we're going, it's going to be infinitely worse than just a dead zone in the mangroves.
In D.C., Bradley Whitford talks to Republicans about climate change. Wednesday, Delia School of Canada presents Years of Living Dangerously, Season 2 at 9:35 on Pearl. A star-studded charity event. A fancy art exhibition. Fancy shoes. Scrumptious Chinese dishes. Plus, a world-famous yacht race. Thursday night, Dolce Vita at 9 on Pearl. Who raised these monuments?
There's a power to this place. You look at the world in a different way.
When? How?
It's sort of like an energy point of the planet.
And why? Friday, Earth, Signs from Above at 9:35 on Pearl.
You think you've already found your ideal hotel? Well, before you book, check on Trivago to see if you can find it somewhere else for an even better price. Hotel Trivago。
成長路上充滿挑戰 Aptamil 白金版以領先科學研創白金組合，支持寶寶發展，領先一步為未來做好準備。Aptamil 白金版。
Good evening. The local weather was cloudy. The northeast monsoon brought cooler weather to Hong Kong today. It brought cooler weather to Guangdong. The weather was mainly cloudy over southern China. Up until 5 p.m., today's temperatures range from 18.6 to 25.7 degrees, and the relative humidity was between 73 and 94%. Moderate to fresh northeasterly winds. The current temperature is 20.